Hi, so this is Marcy Stamper, and I'm here today with Janice Dickinson in the K-Root Studios in Twisp, Washington. Appreciate Don Ashford's generosity of letting us record here. Today we're picking up on our conversation from last time about Braver Angels and some of the principles of the group and how it's had such a major change in Janice's life, and I think for other people you know as well. So I think in my notes from when you were describing this to me, it sounds like the skills that are taught in the workshop are they're more about changing your own perspective and outlook than specific techniques for interactions with the other person or what to say if they say this type of thing.
Although in the workshops, we give everyone a participant guide, which is many pages long, and there's practice dialogues in there. So we actually give them things to say. Like in the skills workshop, the Bridging the Divide skills workshop, we have a couple of choices. You can talk about gun control or immigration. And we have a script that you can read of your side of the conversation. And it makes it a lot easier for people to practice in the beginning when you give them what they can say. And then later, people will have to learn to improvise within that structure.
So are they both reading from the script?
They're both reading, but not at the same time. So what we send people into a breakout room, and if both people in the breakout room are Reds, they're given a script where the person who's role-playing is reading from the script, and then they're having to respond to that. So the role player is a red. The red person is reading what a blue might say, and the other red person is having to respond to that.
Right. So one person is having to dig within themselves and find some more compassionate way of responding.
Yep.
Right.
With the skill, and we do skills one by one. Like, in the families workshop, we go one family member at a time. These are the specific skills to use with a gladiator. Go practice that. These are the specific skills to use with a sniper. Go practice that. And then we come back into the room, all of us together, and have reflections on how was that for you? What went well and what didn't go well?
I think you were saying that the changes you noticed that this had brought about, for instance, in your relationship with your father, didn't really come from learning different things to say to him or different ways of reacting. Is that true? It was on a more internal level?
Yes, I think that's accurate, that it was more the place that I was coming from. So having learned that I'm not entering conversations trying to change his mind, and that I'm not entering a conversation thinking he's not intelligent for having an opinion that's different than mine. Those were the things that were the biggest help for me. Yeah. And I think that's true. I think what we're really working on is foundational change within ourselves.
So, for instance, if somebody makes a statement of their views, it's just a frank statement. It's not necessarily trying to stir things up. How would you respond to that differently after going through some of these trainings?
Well, I'll give you a good example. Right before I came here today, my dad called and he was really upset because he'd been watching the news and he had some really strong opinions and he was really not happy and was poking at me to have a conversation that wasn't happy with him. And I think I knew I was on my way to talk to you about Braver Angels, I thought, this is a perfect opportunity. And so I felt within myself that I wasn't triggered by that. It didn't bother me. I could think to myself, well, I know where he's coming from. He's an 88-year-old man. His life has been this way. He's not doing this with the intention of hurting me. He's just in a bad place. So I could understand that more, I think, than I used to.
So he was indeed upset by the news, so he wanted to call you and, I don't know, somehow get that off his chest. And so you just listen and...
Yeah, I do. No, and his news is from the other side from where I stand politically. One of my lines is that it seems to really be helpful with him is, I'm sorry that you feel that way. That must be really hard. And I am, truly. I mean, I know it's hard for him. He's an older person. He's at home all day long watching the news, and no matter what side of the political spectrum you are from, that is hard.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of upsetting stuff in the news.
Very much so.
Regardless of your perspective.
Regardless of whether you agree with it or not, it's very upsetting, right? And ironically, my mom, who has passed away several years now, she watched the other side of 24-hour news network of the other side.
Wow.
So, and I saw the same thing in her. That, and as
she would also call you all upset about the
Yeah.
news. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And maybe that helps now that I've seen both sides, to know that this isn't so much about issues as it is about where we are in our lives. And I know that both my parents, because they have some sort of dementia, are sort of trapped in their chair watching TV most of the day.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking that maybe one of the things that makes Braver Angels so successful is that, compared to sitting and watching the news where you're totally passive, I mean, it's coming at you and you're having reactions to it, but you can't have a dialogue, or you can't do anything other than go call your daughter or call someone else and say, oh my gosh, I'm so upset by this. So in this instance, through Braver Angels, people could actually have a discussion with somebody about why they're upset, and maybe, as you just described, get some kind of compassionate response.
Right, and my compassionate response to him often ends, it didn't today, but it usually ends in him saying, yeah, I watch too much news. I really don't want to do this anymore. Unfortunately, he doesn't have very good skills in watching something else. And I don't live next door, so I can't go over and change the channel for him, but yeah. I could also add that one of the things that happens a lot is that I find myself in conversation with friends where there's some negative conversation happening about the folks on the other side of the political divide. And it's kind of we call that being in a silo. At Braver Angels, we talk about being in your own silo of political leaning. And I can actually say things now that are a little brave and say, well, I actually have some friends on the other side, and here's what they're saying. This is what they're telling me, which is, probably different from the conversation that my friends are having. And I've learned how to say it in such a way that I don't cause the conversation to be completely stopped.
And then are they interested in hearing that? And it
sometimes
gives them
mostly,
some insight?
Mostly not. But what it does is it neutralizes that negativity. Usually that stops. And I notice that my husband, I think I've told you before, my husband used to do quite a bit of that, and he doesn't do that anymore, at least around me. And that's a small thing, but actually if we all did that, that would be a huge thing, because we're creating toxicity by just talking to our own side about how bad the other side is. And that causes that process I think I mentioned in our last talk about when you dislike someone, that can escalate to dehumanizing the other side and believing that they're less human, less worthy people, which eventually then can lead to violence and bad things. So you're depolarizing at a low level, your community or your friends or your family around you.
It sounds like the people who are coming to these workshops aren't doing it, but in real life, if somebody makes a really offensive statement or something that's really trying to get you, and what sort of techniques you've learned for dealing with that.
We teach that at the end of the Family and Politics workshop, of how to deal with a conversation that's not going to be useful and has gone south. And basically, it's an exit strategy. If you're entered into a conversation with someone who's attacking you, or someone who's has no good intentions, there's no reason to continue that conversation. And some people are really good at ending that with humor. Other people can redirect. Other people can say, "Hey, can we talk about this another time when I'm not so hungry?" or when we're not at Thanksgiving dinner.
Thanks again for taking the time to share all this interesting information. I know I'm going to go on there and read some more things and listen to some more of the lectures. It just seems like they've got some really important insights for all of us. So,
Thanks, Marcy, for your curiosity and great questions. I really appreciate it.
well, thank you for your time.